More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 5:15 from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. It's the Zach Gelb Show. Time to talk some New York and Philadelphia baseball with the man that hit over 500 home runs, 509 to be exact, was a member of the 1997 World Series championship team of the Florida Marlins, and now is a tremendous analyst for TBS. That's Gary Sheffield, who's kind enough to join us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Chef, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Well, we're doing great, and we appreciate you giving us a few minutes today. Since it's draft season in the MLB, I have to take you back to 1986 when you were the 6th overall pick in the first round. What do you remember about that day?
Well, I remember about the first thing I remember is I didn't know anything about Milwaukee or never followed them or anything like that. I thought I was going to the Texas Rangers or the Atlanta Braves, and when I got picked 6th, I was probably more surprised than anybody.
And that's a game where you don't know, like you just said, where you're going to end up, and you're so young in your life, and that kind of gets lost in this thing because there's so much of an expectation when you get drafted that early. But when you get drafted that early, you probably knew that you could be a really good baseball player, and you ended up hitting over 500 home runs. But when was that moment in the big leagues that you thought to yourself, hey, I could have a nice long career?
Well, when I got to San Diego, when I got traded from Milwaukee in '92, I was surrounded by Tony Gwynn and Fred McGriff and Benito Santiago. And I remember my coach, Ritter, he came up to me and told me, we don't expect you to hit. We just want you to be able to pick up the baseball from third base. And so I looked at him like, you don't expect me to hit. I was like, well, you must call me hit. So I just felt like, okay, well, now the pressure is off. I don't have to live up to anything. I can just go and learn from Tony Gwynn and Fred McGriff. They sandwiched me in between them, hitting third. And I just felt like, everything clicked for me at that moment. I remember one incident where there was a man on second and third. I hit a fly ball to left field, and it was no outs. And my guy scored, but the guy stayed at second base, and they intentionally walked Fred McGriff. And he met me in the dugout after the inning was over and explained to me that situation about situational hitting. Instead of getting one run out of the situation, allowing him to swing the bat, and we could possibly have 3 runs out of the situation. So that's when I started thinking, ahead opposed to just reacting to situations. I started understanding the game a lot better.
Gary Sheffield with us right now. Here in New York, we're seeing the emergence of Aaron Judge, which has just been so impressive. Last year, got a small cup of coffee with the big league club, 84 at-bats, was batting 179. Now having over 200 bats this year, batting 347, 22 home runs, and 49 RBIs. As a great hitter like you were, what is it like for you right now to watch a young star in Aaron Judge?
Well, it's impressive to watch. I talked to Marcus Thames this offseason, and he wanted me to sit down with the kid and kind of get him to understand the strike zone, being quiet at the plate, and things like that. So I'm not surprised at what he's doing. It seemed like the game has slowed down for him. He was a big swing and miss guy, but when I see him hit now, he's hitting with such poise and patience. He's allowing that large frame to react to the baseball, and he's not pulling off the baseball this year.
Did you talk to him in the offseason, and what advice did you give him if you did?
Well, I didn't get to talk to him. We had different arrangements where I was out of town, and when I got back, he had to leave. But at the same time, I kind of passed on the information to Marcus Thames, and we talked about what is it going to take for him to not swing and miss so much, because he wanted to talk to me about striking out, and because I was a guy that never struck out that much, and he wanted to understand the art to it. And I explained to Marcus Thames, you have to draw a box at home plate. And if the ball, you got to remember, if the guy's throwing a breaking ball, and if it's inside the box on the outside corner, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be out of the box by the time you swing at it. So when you recognize the breaking ball, you got to see the ball first before you react to it. Once you see it, then you commit to it. So by the time you commit to it, it's out of the strike zone, and it's time to let it go.
Nationally, no one thought that this Yankee turnaround, even locally, no one thought it would be happening this quickly. And they've had some pleasant surprises this year, Hicks being one of them, Judge being the one that is at the top of that list. And Sanchez continues to improve. Castro has been a stud at second base. You go on and on and on. Didi Gregorius and Gardner. This is just really a prodigious hitting team right now. How about this turnaround that the Yankees are on? Because I didn't see it coming this quickly, Gary.
Well, you look at their roster; they have a bunch of talent on it. You're just concerned about their pitching staff, and now that you have those young pitchers pitching well, it takes pressure off of CC Sabathia. He's up in age now, and when I looked at a couple of games he's thrown, it seemed like he got his fastball back, and that's the key to this team. If he can keep that fastball in the low 90s. It makes his change up and his back to a hook and his slider more dangerous. So I think, with Tanaka struggling, I think the last 3 or 4 starts, I think CC is picking up that slack. And I just believe that if those young players continue to pitch well, you're going to see them in October.
Do you believe those young players will continue to pitch well?
I believe they will because they have power arms. And when you have power arms, you can get away with a little more mistakes here and there. Just like Maddox, he had so much movement on his fastball. His breaking ball was average, and he still got away with it.
Gary Sheffield with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Let's go to the other team in New York. This was supposed to be their year, and it's been a year of struggle so far, and we're not even at the All-Star break. What do you make out of your former team with the Mets, and do you expect them to get back in the race, or is this season over?
Well, with Cespedes coming back from injury, I think they're going to improve a little bit. But I just don't believe in guys throwing 100 miles an hour in their starting pitchers because an injury is waiting to happen. And when you're throwing that hard and trying to continue to look at the radar gun and how many strikeouts you can get, I don't see that faring too well. I don't believe in this team long term, but, with these young guys, they'll stay afloat.
How much blame do you put on this season on the manager and Terry Collins?
Well, I don't put the blame on him. I just believe that based on how they use these pitchers and the Matt Harvey and things like that and their pitch selection, when you're throwing that hard, these guys get beat with a lot of breaking balls. And I just think that if they just get these kids to mature and location of their pitches with the fastball, I think it'll make their breaking stuff even more dangerous. So when you're throwing breaking balls early in the count to 6th and 7th and 8th hitters, you're basically doing them favors because now they see it and they can react to, the fastball a lot better.
And that's the problem with these Mets pitchers, and I think you put it perfectly. They're young, they've had some success, and I think it got to their heads a little bit, definitely with Harvey. And then you look at Syndergaard. He wouldn't get the MRI when the team requested it, then was trying to throw fastball after fastball, put on a lot of muscle. I know you weren't a pitcher, but just being a professional ball player like you were, how do you get a player when he's that young and has some early success to buy in and just to be a little bit more mature?
Well, you just have to show them footage of other pitchers that had similar stuff and show them that, hey, fastballs put in the right spot is hard to hit, especially when you're throwing upper 90s. You got guys throwing 95 miles an hour. When they locate their fastball in the right location, they're unhittable. So you shouldn't have a problem, with the strike zone when you're throwing 98 miles an hour, 99 miles an hour. So that's a different ball game. From 95 to 99 is a big jump, and nobody should be squaring that up.
I'll tell you, one positive, though, in this Mets season, and I know there hasn't been a lot of positives, has been the comeback of Mikkel Conforto, who had a down year last year. What are you seeing right now with Conforto at the plate? I know he's a little banged up the last few days, but he's been a special player for them this year.
Well, what I see, I see, a better. He's probably their best player outside of Cespedes. But Cespedes has a lot of holes, and when man is in scoring position, I don't see him as clutch as I would expect. He's a good home run hitter and an okay average hitter, but I think this kid is the best player on their team.
On the way out with Gary Sheffield, over 500 home runs in his career, the 1997 World Series champion, and now an analyst for TBS. Let's go down the turnpike and get to the Philadelphia Phillies into the conversation. We know they've been the worst team in the league. Mikkel Franco's having an enormous amount of struggles through 214 at-bats. Through 220 at-bats, he's batting .214. What advice do you give to a player like Mikkel Franco?
Well, just you got to look at it as a small sample size. In the big leagues, you don't judge a kid until he has 350 at-bats. And when he gets 350 at-bats, you know what kind of season he's going to have. So I think it's just a small sample size right now. And by the All-Star break, you should see the true player because you went through both leagues, seeing all the pitches. And once you see everybody for the second time, things should get better.
A lot of fans are advocating to call up some of these youngsters in AAA. Do you believe that it's time to give some of these kids in AAA that are hitting right now a call up to the big show?
Well, if they're worthy of a call up, you don't just call guys up because they're hitting 270. If they're hitting 3+ with some power and driving in runs, I would call them up if they're mature enough to be in the big leagues because I came to the big leagues at a young age, and mentally I wasn't prepared to perform at that level at the time. I was thinking, if I would have just spent one more year in AAA, I probably would have been. It would have probably been more relaxed for me, a more relaxed atmosphere. When everything is sped up for you at a young age, you can't really break down, situation in fast enough time.
Gary Sheffield with us. Last one for you, Gary, before we let you run. I'm going to take you back a few weeks to the incident with Bryce Harper when he was thrown at by Strickland. I know some of it's part of the game and retaliation's going to happen, but that incident really did annoy me. What do you think about the current state of retaliation in the game of Major League Baseball?
Well, I just think it's unfair to the hitters because pitchers get to throw at you at will, and they're the only ones. I mean, we know they're throwing at us, but they're the only ones truly know they're throwing at you. And the punishment, when you talk about a superstar in Bryce Harper, when he missed 3 games, that's detrimental to his team. When Strickland missed 6 games, it's not. So I just believe that, if these guys, throwing at you, we should be able to do what we want to do back to them. And if we can do that, then I wouldn't have a problem with it.
What was the worst hit by pitch that you suffered in your career?
Well, Carmona, he kept hitting me over and over because I took him out the stadium in Cleveland, and I wound up hitting a home run off of him, and he didn't like it too much. So every time he faced me, because he knew that sinker fastball that he threw on the inside didn't faze me one bit, I could turn on that pitch, and so he didn't want to face me, so he would hit me.
Well, Gary, hey, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much, and let's do it again real soon. We appreciate it, my friend.
Okay, buddy, you got it.